Welcome to First Unitarian Society of Minneapolis, the birthplace of Congregational Humanism. We carry on that tradition of free thought today, dedicated to promoting a free search for truth, meaning, and justice. Our web address is firstunitarian.org. I'm David Breeden, Senior Minister. Welcome.
Beloveds, as we gather here this morning, I invite you in with this poem entitled Breathe by Unitarian Universalist minister Lynn Unger. Breathe, said the wind. How can I breathe at a time like this when the air is full of smoke, of burning tires, of burning lives? Just breathe, the wind insisted. Easy for you to say. If the weight of injustice is not wrapped around your throat, cutting off all air, I need you to breathe. I need you to breathe. Don't tell me to be calm when there are so many reasons to be angry, so much cause for despair. I didn't say be calm, said the wind. I said to breathe. We're going to need a lot of air to make this hurricane together. As we settle into our virtual assembly hall this Sunday morning, October 4th, 2020, let us remember to breathe deeply, to imagine ourselves as one strong body, to be present here now. Come, let us assemble together.
Good morning, friends. I'm Allison Wyeth, Director of Religious Education here at First Unitarian Society, and I'd like to share with you this morning what our Religious Explorer program is up to. We've started our program year and we'll be meeting today at 1 p.m. Each Sunday afternoon, we gather our youth together to light our chalice and get an introduction to one of our Unitarian Universalist principles. Then we break out into age groups for discussion, activities, and fun. Kids, you are absolutely still welcome to join us, even if you're not yet registered. Just ask your grown-ups to head over to our website and find the registration link on the RE program page. I hope to see you this afternoon.
Now for our congregational covenant. Love is the spirit of this place, and service its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
Good morning, everybody. Reverend Jim here, and I am today doing a combo of the Time for All Ages and the Chalice lighting. We decided to mix these together this week because we were getting some questions from people who actually didn't know why we light a chalice every week in the beginning of our assembly. So we know that a lot of our kids know the story because a lot of our kids have been through our Chalice Lighter program where they learn the history of the chalice. And we thought we would share that with the broader community, especially right now when we have a lot of visitors online from other places. So I'm just going to talk about the chalice a little bit, why we light the chalice every week. It goes back to World War II. And during World War II, the Unitarian Service Committee started, and they went over to Europe to help people in Europe flee the war, flee World War II. And they were working in Portugal, where there was a port that was open, and they were helping refugees get papers to go to leave Europe and come to the United States or go somewhere else. And they needed a logo to put on those papers to make them look more official. And so they asked Hans Deutsch. Hans was a refugee himself. He had been kicked out of Germany because he had made cartoons making fun of Hitler, making fun of Adolf Hitler. And so we like that. We like to make fun of people who want to be dictators, right? That's a good thing. But he was helping out with the refugees in Portugal, and they asked him, because he had a graphics background, if he would make a logo. And so he made a logo. He never had been to a Unitarian church, a Unitarian congregation, or anything. He based his logo on just knowing Unitarians and the good work they were doing. And so he chose two ancient symbols. He chose a cup and a flame, a cup and a flame. And the cup representing, community and sharing, and the flame representing hope and light and reason and all those things. And he quickly put the logo together and created this logo that you can see right now. And in the second picture, you can see the logo on a variety of places inside one of the refugee offices in Paris at the time of the war. So that's how it got started. The ancient symbols came together, and they represented a lot of things that Unitarians stand for. Now, there are lots of different kinds of chalices. I have this one that I just showed you. This one is actually from Transylvania, which is in Hungary, in the area of Hungary. And it's from one of the Unitarian congregations there. This was a gift that was given to me when I was an intern, hand-painted chalice. And then I also have this chalice here, which was also given to me by my internship committee back when I was a ministerial intern. This was made by FUS member Peter Discoli, who I did not know at that time. And I was quite excited to learn that he works in our congregation, and he does pottery and is a doctor and does many things. You can make your own chalice if you want. One of the easiest ways to do that is to combine a teacup and a saucer in an unusual way. You can make a chalice-like substance, chalice-like device, and that can work. And we've been asking people to light the chalice and record it and send it in to us for Sunday mornings. Now, a lot of people don't have a chalice, and it's not that important that you have an exact chalice, but we do still want people to send in lighting the flame because it's an important tradition. The logo came first, interestingly enough, and then Unitarian congregations picked it up over the decades, and now for probably 4 or 5 decades, chalice lighting is something that happens all over the country on Sunday mornings with our sibling congregations in the Unitarian and Universalist tradition. So we would love you to be a part of that. And you will be, some of you will be receiving emails to be asked about that. We're going to probably work our way through the directory and see if we can get more people to take part. It's a very simple and good thing to do. So for today, I'm going to light this chalice right here. I'm going to light the one, and I'm going to light it in honor of our Unitarian and Universalist heritage, which is a beautiful thing. There we go.
This is Choctaw Hymn number 112. I am a Choctaw Indian, and I grew up in the Oklahoma Indian Missionary Conference of the United Methodist Church. For every church service at this church, we would sing Choctaw hymns, and something to note about them is that there is no written musical notation for them. They're all of the melodies are passed down by rote, and you learn them when you're a child, and you sing them your whole life. This one is very slow, but it's one that you feel very deeply when you hear it.
On Sundays when we gather, we take a few minutes to reflect on the joys, sorrows, and milestones of the human experience. We do this so that we stay in touch with our own humanity. We do this to remind ourselves of the value of a moment of stillness. And we do this so that no one among us is alone, either in celebrating joy or in facing the burdens of life. This morning, the moment of silence that we traditionally take seems especially important after all the events of this past week. Silence was nowhere to be found during a presidential debate filled with abusive, vitriolic behavior. Silence was nowhere to be found amid the cacophonous drumbeats of news story after news story. We heard about voter suppression, the threats to healthcare and women's rights, the emboldening of white supremacist groups with histories of violence, and so much more. We are living through a scary and extraordinarily painful time. And the classic authoritarian strategies of creating confusion, fear, and exhaustion are amplifying the challenges we face. That's why it's as important as ever to pause, to take a quiet moment, however brief, to stay centered and grounded in our values. It's important to seek out silence as a time for taking stock of what is still good in our lives, for remembering the reasons, however small, that we might have for being grateful. It's wise to seek out silence as a time for restoration, to take a break from any burdens we have been carrying, and to rest up for the work ahead, and to remember that we are not alone. Let us now share a moment of silence. As we come out of the silence, we'll hear our traditional musical response. We invite you to sing along at home or simply listen.
A couple of weeks ago, I talked about the concept of hope. I mentioned how early tellings of the Pandora story demonstrate that the ancient Greeks considered hope a curse rather than a blessing, because they saw hope as debilitating. Hope, they thought, would lead to passivity in the face of fate. So we people today don't see hope in that way. As a matter of fact, we often consider hope an emotion, something like pessimism or optimism. Feeling hopeless is categorized as a mental emotional condition, but that's not all hope is. I ended that discussion a couple of weeks ago by looking at hope according to the definition of the pragmatist philosopher Richard Rorty, that hope is a commitment to a set of outcomes, even if those outcomes aren't likely ever to be achieved. Justice, for instance, and democracy and world peace. Hoping these things occur is hopeless. Making a commitment to achieving these goals gives life meaning and purpose. It's a tragic misunderstanding of ancient ethics to see the things they were talking about as somehow solidified in constant states of being, what we call goals nowadays. Take the most frequently mentioned word in ancient Greek philosophy, virtue. The philosophers were saying that virtue is a process, not a goal. It's a process. They were smart enough to know that neither they nor anyone else was ever going to actually achieve virtue. There's no reason to hope for that goal. The attempt to live virtuously is a process, an attempt, a process of living life. Humanists think that way as well. We are life living life responsibly. Humanism is a way of thinking and living that focuses on human action in relation to the well-being of sentient beings and the planet. The ancients were wrong in their concept of fate. Fate is not a solid thing out there. There's no such thing as an end to the work that we are dedicated to either. Now, this has practical day-to-day consequences for us. Members and friends of this congregation aren't sitting around complaining about the effects of COVID on our congregation. You, are stepping up and getting down to the work of making assembly happen online. It's not easy, and we have people who have stepped up with that ability to help us out. Making the 9 a.m. Monday through Friday Coffee and Wisdom a success, getting that out there. Taking all the media pieces that we've been generating and putting it into a usable form, of getting our message out, and at the same time working to get the building ready for a totally new way of doing congregational life even after the quarantine is over. That is what humanists do. We go out and commit to getting things done that we believe in. This understanding of hope is all about living your values. And living your values is a process that humanism is about, a process. How can I be and do a little better today than I did yesterday? Just a little bit. We don't have to eat the elephant all at once. So the emotional view of hope is subjective, individualistic, even solipsistic, while viewing hope as a commitment is necessarily a communal understanding. It is relational hope. That's our theme for the month of October. Deep communication and deepening relationships, listening, empathizing, and living in relationship toward our goals, even if they're never achievable. I mean, if you're thinking that you can achieve world peace, democracy, social justice all by yourself, it may be time to talk to a professional. I'm reminded of Carl Sagan's famous phrase, if you wish to make an apple pie from scratch, you must first invent a universe. Sagan is pointing out the simple fact of the reality in which we all live. We exist because of and in process and in relationships, in relationalities. Relationalities such as respect and gratitude for our connectedness to each other and the planet, respect and gratitude for our community, and a commitment to preserve the relationship by taking responsibility, practicing stewardship, and staying in community even now. Despite all the challenges that community and our circumstances throw our way, we are committed to the process of going somewhere, and we know where we're going. The German philosopher Theodor Adorno said, "The splinter in your eye is the best magnifying glass. The splinter in your eye is the best magnifying glass." The very flaws that we work against in ourselves are the reasons that we can empathize with others. They teach us to listen to others. Relationalities, in them is our meaning and our purpose and our sense of belonging. And the only chance that humanity has to survive is in that relationality. The sociologist George Simmel described gratitude as the moral memory of humankind. The moral memory of humankind. It's a moral memory because we realize that we exist due to the collective human project that has been sustained over millennia. And it's a moral memory reminding us to respect what we have been given by caring for that so that we can pass it on into a sustainable future. We humanists commit to the process of solving this world's problems in this world, getting assembly online, and yes, working for justice and democracy. As you probably know, Henry David Thoreau died young due to tuberculosis, and the story goes that one of his well-meaning aunts asked him on his deathbed, "Henry, have you reconciled with God?" Henry Thoreau answered, "I had not known we quarreled. I had not known we quarreled." That's a very humanist answer. In Henry's time, slavery was a big problem. Rampant industrialization was a problem. The genocide of natives was a problem. Unjust war with Mexico was a problem. Reconciliation with God was not a problem. And I've said many times, the human ship is always sinking, always has been sinking, always will be sinking. That is the human condition. Our ship is sinking. And the fact is, there's no indication that a whole lot of prayer is going to do a whole lot of good. You can't pray away COVID. You can't pray away wildfires. Prayer is much like that ancient understanding of hope. You feel better, but what are you doing about it? And that's what we humanists ask. What can we do? Because that is the central human question. To begin, we do well to remind ourselves of the fact of this human condition. We know what we know and feel what we feel because of and due to our relationships with each other and to sentient beings and to the planet. We are finally learning, even in our Western world, that the independent, isolated, bounded self is at best a fiction and at worst a lie. It isn't, "I think, therefore I am." It's, "I interact, therefore I am." I interact, therefore I am. The internal and the external are in constant interplay, and that is what creates our reality. There are words bouncing around us all the time, everywhere, in print, in gestures, in the air. How many do we attempt to comprehend? What should we even bother listening to comprehend? One intriguing recent theory is called shared intentionality. Shared intentionality theory posits that through sharing intentionality, over the millennia, humans developed the ability to jointly consider one problem. A group thinking about one problem all at the same time. And that theory goes that that's how we developed language and why. That how we developed imitative learning. Oh, I can learn to do that. I'll just watch you. And also the ability to teach each other and pass these things down through the time. That's about sharing intention. It's sharing the intention of getting this one thing accomplished. Fact is, we really don't know what it means to think outside of a collective consciousness. We are human because we evolved to share intentionality and thereby to accomplish what we accomplish. That's why it's so frustrating for us humanists when we see so many people ignoring COVID, thinking it will go away, or ignoring climate change, thinking it will just go away. We know that human shared intentionality is the answer in both of those cases and in a whole lot more. Hope lies in commitment to the goals, in shared intentionality. We've got polarizing issues happening in the United States at the moment. We've got a broken social contract. We don't listen to each other. We can't listen to each other, and we can't comprehend each other. That's why we are all in such desperate need of the voluntary associations that build civil life, associations such as congregations. Now think with me a few moments about what a community actually is when I talk about FUS being a community. And there's a great little book by Charles H. Vogel called The Art of Community, 7 Principles for Belonging. Love the book. Vogel says that communities form around 4 principles of agreement. A community, he says, has an origin story, how things began. A community has a cosmology, what the universe is like. A community has an agreed upon source of moral truth. And a community has a shared epistemology, that is, how truth can be identified and found. You've heard me tell the story of congregational humanism at First Unitarian Society over and over because I tell it every time I get a chance, because this origin story matters. This congregation came out of a group called the Liberal League, a nationwide movement in the late 19th century dedicated to fighting censorship in the United States mail. Censorship of such things as birth control, women's health, and religious liberalism. The Liberal League lost their fight. The censorship in the U.S. mail went on for another 6 decades. But the Liberal League of Minneapolis continued meeting, becoming a reading group studying the ideas of Charles Darwin. And that culminated in the beginning of our congregation in 1881 in the incorporation. Thus, in 1916, when John Dietrich interviewed for the position that I now hold of senior minister, he said, hey, I invented this new thing called religious humanism. And the people of the congregation said, wow, we want to know about that. That sounds like us. They were intrigued by this new idea. We have an origin story as a congregation, how things began and what we're about. As the aspirations of our society phrases it, support one another's journey toward meaning and connection in the here and now. We also share a cosmology, what the universe is like. It's amazing and awe-inspiring, we believe, but it also has laws that we can learn and thus find out things about our cosmos. As our aspirations put it, we aspire to live joyfully and ethically in loving, reverent relationship with humanity and nature. A community has an agreed upon source of moral truth. We believe that evolution shaped the human animal into a cooperative social animal able to share together and figure out how to fix problems. As our aspirations phrase it, make the change we need for a more just, compassionate, and peaceful world. and a community has a shared epistemology. That is, how truth can be identified. We believe in, as our aspirations say, pursuing wisdom through reason, science, art, and the stories of civilization. All of those create our epistemology. So we are a community, and we agree to, as our aspirations phrase it, support one another's journey toward meaning and connection in the here and the now. As John Dietrich put it, the great word of humanism is one word: together. Together. Sure, individuality is a product of Western thinking. It developed out of the Christian theology that claimed that there's an isolated self that is working towards some kind of eternity in heaven or in paradise or hell or somewhere. And it becomes a psychological battle in your head. It's part of this creation of the bounded self, individuality fighting for some kind of paradise and eternity. And that bounded self then becomes the cornerstone of capitalism. The self is an ideal sort of concept to sell products to because, well, the bounded self is, of course, a lie. When we separate ourselves out and assert a false independence, we always feel a lack, a chasm of meaning. We always feel a void that can be sold to, can be convinced to consume all manner of things in a hopeless attempt to feel whole, complete, to feel comfortable in the world. Individualism was at first a tragedy as a thought, and now it has become a farce. But that wrong-headed turning of the Western Christian mind did give us a powerful tool. The insistence that the individual consciousness must be free to make decisions. The individual consciousness must be free to make decisions. Our religious tradition has taught that. And from that freedom, so baked into the liberal religious tradition, we are free to choose the truth as we see it. And we humanists choose to see the truth of our relational selves. I interact, therefore I am. I am because we are. That's my favorite saying that comes out of African humanist tradition, Ubuntu. I am because we are relational. We listen to each other. I have hope because I see the evidence of human cooperation. I see people willing and able to listen and comprehend and to join in solutions in our congregation, in our community, and in the wider world. No, the wider nation doesn't share our common origin story. It doesn't share our cosmology. It doesn't share a common agreement about the sources of moral truth, nor a shared epistemology concerning how truth is even arrived at. And, I think that's a tragedy. It's a failure of economic policy. It's a failure of public education. It's a failure of leadership. As one of the proverbs from Hebrew scripture sums it up, where there is no vision, the people perish. Where there is no vision, the people perish. We just don't have a common community. 200,000 people dead of COVID-related symptoms and counting. Wildfires, flooding coastlines, hurricanes, drought. You know the list goes on and on. For those who see hope as an emotion, I can see why they might feel despair. But for those of us who embrace relationship and process and community and shared intentionality, for us, hope is a commitment, not an emotion, a commitment. And no one can stop our commitment to our shared values. Join me from home in our Extinguishing the Chalice words. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. All of these we carry in our hearts and in our minds until we are together again. First Unitarian Society of Minneapolis is the birthplace of congregational humanism. 4 FUS ministers were signers of humanist manifestos: John Dietrich, Ray Bragg, Corin Arisian, and Kendall Gibbons. For more than a century, FUS has been at the forefront of Unitarian Universalist humanism and the broader humanist movement. Help us keep the voice of First Unitarian Society strong in these troubled times. Thanks for listening today. The greatest gift we can give each other is listening. In the words of the Unitarian abolitionist Theodore Parker, "Be ours a religion which, like sunshine, goes everywhere. Its temple, all space. Its shrine, the good heart. Its creed, all truth. Its ritual, works of love. Its profession of faith, divine living. So may it be." Thanks for listening. You can find much more about humanism and what's happening at First Unitarian Society in Minneapolis by visiting our website at firstunitarian.org.